Now, a new film telling the true story of the men and women who left their homes in the Caribbean to make a new life in Nottingham is being shown for the first time in the coming week. Many Rivers to Cross is premiering at Nottingham Contemporary on Thursday. The documentary includes personal accounts of what life was like for people coming to England in the 1950s and 60s.
Oh heavens, how on earth does people live in this cold? Because actually it felt just like when you open the fridge door, and my thinking then was, how does these people live in this fridge?
That's just one of the stories you'll hear more of in the film, which was made by Patsy Francis, who joins me now. Good evening.
Hi.
That really does bring a smile to my face hearing it. Is it the sort of story you can expect to hear in the film?
Absolutely. And I think there are stories that we have heard, some of us have heard over the years, but the whole purpose of the film really was to make sure that those stories stay alive, and that we capture them, conserve them, and keep them for longevity, basically. So yeah, they're great stories, great personalities involved in making the film. It was an enjoyable experience.
Tell us a bit about the characters involved in this film. Who are they? What sort of ages? Where are they from?
Well, basically, the idea behind the film was to really make sure that we captured what happened to those who came over from the Caribbean in the 50s and 60s. So many of them now will be in their 70s, in their 80s, and perhaps a bit later. Our eldest participant is in her 90s. And so it was really important, a bit like the World War I veterans, to make sure that we captured them so that we heard the stories firsthand. So we filmed 9 participants, both men and women, all very different personalities, but all very strong characters and real tenacity, which certainly made me wonder whether that was the reason why they were so successful. They stayed, they didn't go back despite all the hostility that they experienced when they came over, whether that was the reason why they stayed. And a range of stories that we'll hear on Thursday, but the stories in effect sort of make up the whole, so almost like a quilt of mini stories that makes up the whole blanket, and stories, as I've said, that we've heard over the years that many people in the situation then, and I'm sure coming over today, will experience.
Were there many common reasons for the people that came to Nottingham, left their homes in the Caribbean? Were there patterns of the sort of reasons they came here?
Well, some came because they heard that they would get more money, that the salary was better here. Others came because they had parents here, because some came over when they were quite young, so their parents were already here, so they came to join their parents. And others came because they thought they would come and see what it was like and then go back. And they all said that they planned to only stay for 5 years. 50 odd years later, they're here, settled with a family. So many reasons.
In terms of the experience they had when they arrived, they came to make a better life for themselves. Did they manage to do that?
I think in many respects they perhaps felt that they did. I think when they first came, they wondered what they were doing. You know, maybe they would be going back, they wouldn't be staying. But I think certainly what one person said was that, she only came for 5 years, and then suddenly you work, you get into a relationship, you buy a house, you raise a family, before you know it, you've settled, you're here for 50 years. And I think that was the case with many of them, really. And I think they certainly were fighters. That came through quite strongly, that they were all real fighters.
I would imagine it was a very difficult time to leave the Caribbean and to move to England. The 1950s and 60s, I'd bet they'd faced their fair share of difficulty and challenges.
Exactly. And when they first came, I would argue that perhaps where they were in the Caribbean, prejudice wasn't a concept that they'd even perceived. So when they came over, it was quite possible that it wasn't something that they perhaps understood, but when you see signs, no Irish, no blacks, no dogs, then certainly it slaps you across the face and wakes you up, and that's certainly what they experienced. But there was always that sort of a family unit, so everyone looked out for everyone, and that you sense that still really within the generation.
I'm joined by Patsy Francis on BBC Radio Nottingham. You're going to hear a bit more about the film which she made and is being premiered for the first time at Nottingham Contemporary on Thursday after music from Charlie Wilson. Now, before that, you were hearing from the filmmaker responsible for Many Rivers to Cross. It's a brand new film which is being shown for the first time at Nottingham Contemporary in the coming week. It tells the story of the men and women who left their homes in the Caribbean to make a new life in Nottingham in the 1950s and 60s. Patsy Francis, explain what led to you making this film in the first place.
Well, it was something that I'd been thinking about for quite a while, the beginning of last year really, and just knowing that last year was the start of some of the Caribbean islands' independence, and wanting to really note that in some way, and the journeys that people made. And the idea came to me that actually, you know, these are stories that I know, but soon people won't know about it. And, you know, it's an ideal opportunity to mark history and make sure history is not rewritten. And it was important for that history to be told from the people who experienced it, so firsthand. So I approached the Heritage Lottery, and very grateful and thankful that they supported us in making it. And as part of that, worked with Mundi Global Education, and we work in partnership to make sure also that the stories will go out to schools, and that we worked with 50 young people and really explored ideas around identity and culture and so on. And it's worked really well, and that was around a year ago, and we're now here, and the film will premiere on Thursday.
That's at the Broadway Cinema. What happens after then?
Well, basically, I'm now, obviously a lot of time was spent on focused on filming and getting the stories right and so on, and now the premiere on Thursday, and after that I'd really like to explore festivals and various other places where we can show the film. So if there's anyone who has ideas, please let me know. That would be really helpful. But yes, that's what I'd like to do, because it will go into schools. We've had requests from Jamaica for it to go in their archives and so on. So it will go out quite widely, but as you know, I'm keen for it to go out as wide as possible, for people as wide as possible to hear the story and understand what their experience, what they have done has shaped the culture and the society that we now live in, basically.
Now, the screening, as you've mentioned a couple of times, is this Thursday at the Broadway Cinema, Nottingham Contemporary rather. And it's not just you sit down, you watch the film. You've got a whole event around this. That's what's
we
planned.
have, yeah. Basically, what we want to do is to invite people to come along, bring their family, come and watch the film, but it's all part of it. So it's really a cultural experience. So just an understanding to see the film, to immerse themselves, hopefully, in the time. So we'll have music from the time as well. And we'll also have some performance from some of the participants, which is great, some of the young people, and it's just a great social occasion where it's educational. They'll find out about what happened, and just hopefully enjoy it.
And it's free.
If
you'd like to find out more about the film, head to my Facebook page, Raya UK, where I'll post details shortly. But in the meantime, Patsy Francis, lovely having you on the show.
Thank you very much.